My name is Andy Campbell. I am an associate professor of critical studies at USC, and I am the curator, along with two fellow co-curators, of our patch, LGBTQ Life from Cradle to Grave, which is on view right now, as we're recording this, at the LGBTQ Center Galleries. Our patch takes its name from a bar that was owned by Lee Glaze, who is an early gay rights activist who lived in the South Bay. The bar was called The Patch, and it was the site of a 1968 police raid and subsequent protest in response to that raid. It was an event where the patrons of the bar who did not get arrested raided a flower shop and showed up at the police station with bouquets of flowers, waiting for their brethren, or their sisters, as they called them, to get released from jail. So the exhibition starts there, and it really thinks about kind of what are the conditions of LGBTQ life in Los Angeles, of creative life, but also of how one lives a good life, and maybe even has a good death in LA. It then goes on to consider the multitude of multiracial, social, and political groups that were founded in LA in the late 1970s and early 80s. So behind me, you see a wallpaper of testimony from students who were helped by Virginia Uribe's Project 10 program. Uribe was an educator at Fairfax High School and a counselor, and she developed a program that would help LGBTQ teens stay in school and also to get them the kind of support systems that they needed. And there really was not widespread support for gay and lesbian teens at that point. And then around the corner, by where the entrance to the theater is where we have the Clothespin Fever Press materials. And part of the reason why we wanted to include Clothespin Fever Press in this exhibition is that it's an example of women, in this case, creating from literally kind of nothing, building a whole catalog of women's and lesbian writing, where there really didn't exist that kind of publishing effort before. You know, we're lucky to have from Carolyn and Jenny both the books. We wouldn't have had those otherwise. One of the things that is really special about being able to show the Clothespin Fever Press materials is that not everybody that we're showing in this exhibition is alive anymore. In fact, many of the people whose ephemera and pieces from archives that we're showing are no longer with us for a variety of reasons. So it's extra special not only to be showing the materials, but to have had time with both Jenny and Carolyn and thinking through what this material means to them. And we're hoping that it really encourages people to seek them out and seek their stories out. They are a prototype for what a feminist press can look like and the kind of attention that a feminist and lesbian press can give to queer authors. And so we want them to be as inspirational to the community that comes to see the exhibition as they have been for us.
I grew up in San Diego, came from San Diego, which was kind of a boring town. And I get bored a lot. And my mother was a Sunday painter, and my father was a news photographer for the San Diego Union and Evening Tribune.
Jenny Wrenn and I met through a dating service, not what you think of as any old dating service. This is before the internet, before computers. So we both went to the Sunset Junction Street Fair in Echo Park. This was like 1984. And we didn't know each other. At separate times, they would have little tables and card tables on the side of the street. And there was one that had these two women sitting at it. And it had this sign that said, Meat Market, M-E-E-T, Meat Market. And it was for lesbians, gays, and bisexuals. And I signed it. It was all written, see. And Jenny also signed it. And what you did is you told them what about yourself and what you're looking for in somebody, and then they would take these written pages and match people. And they matched us. They would send her this little sheet of pink paper that said, Jenny, we'd like you to meet Wrenn Weathers. Carolyn, we'd like you to meet Jenny Wrenn. So we waited a while because we were both too shy. And about a week later, we called each other And we didn't want to talk. We just said, okay, let's meet somewhere.
And so we communicated at first by phone, and then we had a couple dates.
And we met somewhere. It was some gay restaurant in West Hollywood. And we just really hit it off. And she was an artist, and I was a writer.
We were both artists. I said, you know, that art is like my highest priority, and she said, me too. And so I went to her poetry reading, and I was thrilled.
We had gotten praise for our personal work, our art and writing, but it never seemed to be quite what anybody was looking for. And Jenny heard me read this very short memoir called Leaving Texas.
I thought it was fabulous work. So I said, well, do you have a publisher lined up? And she said, no.
I had written it for this anthology that these two women were going to publish, and they accepted it. But the two women were the editors, and they squabbled over it so much. One of them wanted only famous writers, whether they were that good or not. One wanted only the really best writers, whether they were not known or not. And they fought so much they never got the anthology out. So Jenny heard me read it at a different light bookstore. And she asked me, where could you buy a copy? And I said, it hasn't been published. She couldn't believe it. She said, I'll publish it myself.
I mean, I'll figure out a way, you know, to kind of get it started, and then maybe somebody else would take it over.
She went to the old women's building on Spring Street and printed it out on an A.B. Dick printer, hand sewed it. It's a little piece of art, really, that she did limited copies, and it sold quite well.
I didn't realize that, you know, this was going to be, I was going to actually go into the publishing business.
Jenny came up to me and she said, you know, let's publish another book of yours. So she published my book, Shit Kickers, and Other Texas Stories. And then she decided, you know, I'll publish my own self-portraits, viewing myself as the adult child of an alcoholic. Then, at that time, she came to me with this book called White Clothespins that she had done for an exhibit they were having on like homemade books. It was this size. It was on masonite, put together with nails and carriage bolts, and she painted it white. And her art was in it, inside. And she looked at it and she said, let's start a publishing company. It had all these clothespins on it. Let's name it Clothespin Fever Press. And I said, clothespin? I wanted, you know, like House of, you know, Windsor, some fancy name, but I came to like clothespins. That's what she wanted to do.
One of the things I really liked about the fact that Carolyn and I established this publishing company, which was originally because I wanted to publish her book, and I thought that was going to be the end of it. But it kind of developed, and I really got excited about all of it. And I wanted to the freedom to be creative, make, you know, covers of books, design books.
So we decided to publish other authors and really start this small press. We wanted to be like a gatekeeper for other lesbian writers who needed somebody, some small press, who was so interested in their work. So we didn't care if somebody wrote about their dog's trip to the moon or a lesbian essay. It didn't matter to us.
And it was a really special time in the early 80s and early 90s when feminism was very, very hot, you know, and people were, women were doing all kinds of things they've never been able to do before, mainly because of sexism.
We wanted to start putting out submissions for other lesbians, but we didn't want them to think we had only published ourselves. So Jenny wrote this book Dyke's Bike Repair book. And she said that a woman named Jill Taylor wrote it, so people would think we had published somebody else. And it was a big hit. So then we sent out submissions and really started to get submissions from other lesbians. Poetry, essays, fiction, mysteries. It was just a wonderful collection of everything, which is what we wanted. It was just us, so we did everything. But we would get letters for people that they had written to the director of submissions, managing director of correspondence, director or assistant director of advertising. So we always knew where to put these, what desk. It was just this one desk, it was ours. But it was so funny to us to get all of these. They treated us like this big publishing company and wanting all these people.
Carolyn and I were very suited to, she would do more of the writing, editing part. I did the PageMaker, which was the type of software that was prevalent at the time, and I could do all the books on that. And that's basically how we got started.
Jenny printed out this lesbian line, she called it. And it's like a timeline. It has the last page was this full page of where to find lesbian books across the nation. And it was our catalog, but it was always news that was going on in the lesbian and feminist publishing world.
There was something called ABA, American Booksellers Association, which was fabulous. They had a great convention every year. And feminist bookstores would go there, and there was a section for small press publishers, which of course was what we fit into. And there was a bunch of lesbian and gay publishers in the small press wing of the American Booksellers Association.
Firebrand, Naiad, Women in the Moon, all of these presses, you could name them off. There were about 10 of them, and we would go to these conventions together. It was marvelous, just all these feminist and lesbian presses. And then we would party together afterwards. It was just marvelous to do this and know that we were a gatekeeper for these lesbian writers, particularly if they didn't fit the absolute mold of what a lesbian writer was supposed to be writing.
Carolyn and I were not part of a collective the way some of them were. But we thought that also gave us a little bit of freedom because we felt that sometimes they would concentrate on what their little community was particularly interested in. And we wanted to get involved with people, lesbians who were outside of those circles, who had trouble publishing, who were very talented, but they just didn't fit in to the political ideology that some of these presses were concerned with. So we felt that we kind of picked up the slack. I can give you one example of a person who contacted us and was rejected by almost every other press, whether it was feminist or whether it was mainstream. And that was Helen Vazenelek, who was from San Francisco, and she was editing a book on women's stories about the loss of their mothers, the death of their mothers. And most of the other publishers said, nobody wants to read about death. I mean, that's just, we'll never sell any books. So we wanted to publish it because, if somebody rejected you like that and we believed in the book, then we're there for you. We published Loss of the Ground Note, and it led to a bunch of books on women and the death of their mothers.
We were so honored and thrilled to have taken part in this time in the publishing history. It was a unique and wonderful time all by itself. We got to be part of it.
It's great to be in this particular exhibit because Clothespin Fever was really the only lesbian press on the West Coast. There was lots of stuff on the East Coast, but there wasn't anything here. And Los Angeles was such a hotbed of activism and all sorts of things. We were the first, actually the only one, that was devoted just to lesbian works of fiction, poetry, essays.
And I want to thank Andy Campbell for curating this exhibit. He's fantastic, such an excellent curator and such a nice person. And I'm so honored that we are one of the ones he wanted to have in his collection.
We were so small, and you sometimes feel like you're going to be neglected, you know, and we did have a lot to contribute to the community, which was what we wanted to do.
I went on a nostalgia trip. By now, we lived in Long Beach. And for some reason, I was up in the Silver Lake, Echo Park, Highland Park area again. And I thought I'd go on a nostalgia tour. And so I went by the place where Clothespin used to be. And it was a business. I think they did hearing aids or something. And I asked them if I could come in and have a look. I said, you know, I used to live here. It was 3 of them, a man and a woman, it's straight people. And I told them I used to live here, and they looked at me like, are you one of those women? Yes. This whole myth had been created about Clothespin Fever. It had become this fantastic art colony of women and lesbians. And it was stunning to me that it was there. People, they didn't know us. They never knew the press, anything, but this whole mythos had come about Clothespin Fever Press, which was really sweet. I never expected that. So it touched a lot of people. Thank you.